Look, good day to all of y'all. From wherever you are around the world, whether you're in South Africa, greetings. Whether you're in the rest of Africa, greetings. The rest of the world, greetings to all of y'all. Right, welcome again to another episode of Football is a Religion. It's your host once again, Bubesi Mpati Yomhlaba. Yes, means the conqueror of earth. So, we will be talking about the Premier League, right? And hey, imagine two title contenders losing on the same day and they both lost at home. Isn't that so cringe? Isn't that so amazing? That two title contenders losing at home, you know? Basically now it's like, Arsenal and Liverpool have stumbled in the Premier League title race, right? Which now means that the momentum is now shifting in Manchester City's favor. Basically. Okay? And let's just make this clear. Arsenal now have suffered their fifth league defeat of the season against Aston Villa. Okay? So, what I can just say, man, based on the performances of both clubs, Liverpool and Arsenal at home, right? The Gunners, Arsenal, they reveled the scene of hype anticipation when they walked out, to actually face Aston Villa. Although they were actually left, looking at the sea of empty red seats. 90 minutes later, as the Premier League title race now, it has now taken a potentially, pivotal twist, right? As for Liverpool, they stumbled first in a shock home defeat to Crystal Palace before Arsenal supporters, at least some of those that left, departed the Emirates Stadium as they were actually stunned, They were just as stunned as their Anfield counterparts, slumping to a 2-0 defeat at the hands of the club from Birmingham, Aston Villa. Okay? And this actually means that now the title pursuit, is nowhere near over, right? With only 2 points separating the top three. Okay? But there is, what can I just say, man? An ominously familiar feel, to Manchester City's presence at the top of the table, and basically now the pressure veil has actually been tightened. And as for the Gunners, what will actually be so frustrating for them is that, them alongside Liverpool is that they were both architects of their own downfalls, with desperately poor performances just when they needed the victory the most. You understand? And now when the heat was on, they were both found wanting. So the big question remains now is that can Arsenal and Liverpool hit back for savage blows, or has the title momentum shifted decisively in Manchester City's favor? We'll wait to see, man. We'll only wait to see. It was all just different before Sunday's late kickoff, right? With the Gunners having been handed a major opportunity to reassert their authority at the top, okay? And Arsenal's supporters, chopped in to the Emirates, buoyed by the favor, Crystal Palace had bestowed on them by completing a dismal week for Liverpool after a draw at Manchester United, a heavy defeat in the Europa League quarterfinal to Atalanta. Again, they lost once again to Crystal Palace at Anfield once again a few days later. Liverpool really looked so leggy and stripped off their usual intensity in that 1-0 defeat, by Palace. Which now, it demonstrates all the signs of running out of gas, after an energy, expended in the chase, for at least, of 4 trophies, basically. So, it means now, in the final season of Jurgen Klopp, right, it seems like Liverpool are only going to be walking away with 1 trophy, which was the Carabao Cup. Because now they're out of the FA Cup, they're in danger of not even, going through to the semi-finals of the Europa League, and they're basically in danger of also losing out on the league title. What can I say again? What I can just say, the hope that, engendered by Liverpool's loss actually seemed, counterproductive for Arsenal. With nerves sweeping around the Emirates in a double quick time when an early breakthrough did not materialize. And I know at times, smacked out of desperation or fear that all failings might come back for a side, who were chased down so ruthlessly by Manchester City last season. And eventually they did, as expected. Didn't come as a surprise. Because look, Manchester City are basically experts at applying pressure. As we have seen in previous campaigns, but even, they could not have expected both their rivals to actually struggle in home games on the same day, right? Because now Pep Guardiola and his Manchester City players, they could have enjoyed an ideal Sunday, as they sat back with their feet up, having beaten Luton by 5-1, a day earlier on Saturday afternoon, before watching the Gunners as well as, the Merseysiders, Liverpool, the Reds, implode on their own turf. Liverpool finally paid the price for standing on the precipice too often this season. You understand? And again, they were exposed. Liverpool were very exposed. Let's just be real, because Eberechi Eze's goal was the 14th time, that they've conceded first in the Premier League this season, including on 4 occasions at home, right? In their past, 5 league matches at home, right? And they were actually pushing their luck to think that they could get back every time. Eventually they would not get away with it this time. And it proved to be the day. And Liverpool were just very sloppy. They just were not clinical in front of goal. They missed clear-cut chances. And it came back to haunt them finally. And this is how Liverpool have been complacent for many times this season. They were complacent even in the FA Cup against Manchester United, when they could have wrapped up that game long time. They could have wrapped up that game when the scores were still at 2-1. They could have wrapped it up long time ago. But they didn't. They were punished by Manchester United for being too complacent. And again, in other games that have also come afterwards, they've been very complacent. So basically it means, the Cop's dream of a title-winning farewell for Jurgen Klopp has been, receded. Although there is still time for another twist in the tail, in what has actually been a dreadful week for Liverpool. And the added worry for Klopp is a team counting potency amongst its greatest threat, has suddenly looked blunt, at the worst possible time. With just 2 goals scored in their past 3 matches. So, again, another question, actually, comes over in my mind. And, I start asking this question a lot, is that, can Klopp actually galvanize and inspire one last time, for a glorious flourish? Because it is a mighty challenge in his final days at Anfield, I mean, let me just say, on the other hand, you look at Arsenal's performance. It carried all the hallmarks of a team weighed down by the pressure of them to deliver. Remember, they fell to their first league defeat, since being defeated by 2-1 by Fulham on New Year's Eve. And the usual sharpness was lacking and defensive vulnerability was displayed in the Champions League quarterfinal against Bayern Munich. And it was actually on display once again. With Gabriel particularly uncertain, in that Arsenal defense. And let's just say it like this, man. It has been, to say the least, it has been a long time since the Gunners, showed nerves such as this. And they looked so shaky for so long. The only surprise was it took Villa until the last 10 minutes for normal time to actually score the goals they really deserved, right? And let me just say, man, I don't think it was actually nerves, Perhaps it could have been pressure, or maybe, it didn't look like it was pressure, Because, Aston Villa were, Aston Villa were well on song at the Emirates. And look at the Aston Villa manager, Unai Emery. Basically now he fashioned a victory, that will actually be sweet. After he was sacked by Arsenal in November 2019, only 18 months into his reign, right? And the wider significance for him is that this result increases Aston Villa's chances of finishing in the top 4 and securing a Champions League football next season. Emery has done an outstanding job. And another thing, yeah, man, those goals from Leon Bailey as well as Ollie Watkins, man. All hope, those goals, man, were wonderful goals, and those goals came unexpectedly. I mean, the first one by Leon Bailey, I think Arsenal could have defended that cross better, But it was actually a good goal from the Jamaican. Even Ollie Watkins, rubbing the salt into the wound. That chip over the goalkeeper. I mean, he's a boyhood Arsenal fan. So I'm sure that goal that he just scored against Arsenal, imagine at the Emirates, I'm sure it has really, really, given him so much enthusiasm in his heart to say, look, I scored against my boyhood club. Just like Cole Palmer scoring a hat-trick against his boyhood club that he supported. You know, Cole Palmer grew up supporting Manchester United, and Ollie Watkins grew up supporting Arsenal, you know. And, you know, Arsenal's players, you know, they looked very leggy and jaded for most of the second half. And they were actually exhausted by the end. You know, Look at Arsenal's, you know, possible first half display. You know, it was actually what it actually was, but you know, it was decent, right? Their first half display, but for me, Arsenal's first half display was nowhere near as good as it could get, you know. And again, there are no arguments about the second period. You know, Arsenal were dismal in the second half. The Gunners, they looked tight and tense, you know, as they saw their hopes of victory edging away, and they were unable to secure even a consolation, you know, of a point. As, you know, to say Aston Villa, you know, a team that is actually led by the superb John McGinn and Diego Carlos, you know, deservedly claimed all 3 points. And again, you know, another question comes into my mind, you know, will we actually look back on this, you know, as the day when, you know, the Premier League title, you know, tide turned on Arsenal? And the moment when City's relentlessness finally took its toll on Arsenal and Liverpool. But I guess, you know, time will actually tell. But Arsenal and Liverpool will actually have to find some fresh energy to perform several levels above this kind of performances that they actually displayed. Because if they are to win the Premier League, either of them, they will have to really, you know, perform better than what they did. You understand? They will really have to perform better. As we continue, Manchester City 5, Luton Town 1 at the Etihad Stadium. So, on record, Mateo Kovacic did score, right, in this particular encounter. And to say the least, it is worth noting that Mateo Kovacic has scored 2 domestic goals this season, right, for Manchester City. And both of those domestic goals have come up against Luton Town. Okay, so now Manchester City have moved up, you know, to the top of the Premier League, right? You know, with a predictably dominant victory over the struggling Luton Town. So City, they led only after 65 seconds at the Etihad, you know, when Erling Haaland's wayward volley hit, you know, Luton's, you know, Diaki Hashioka before flying into the net, right? Because obviously, you know, it was a one-sided game, to say the least, right? Just a one-sided game, because it basically, you know, City took more than an hour to actually double their lead, and they did so through Mateo Kovacic's sweet rising strike from near the edge of the area, you know, and then Haaland, you know, put the game beyond any doubt, you know, with the penalty after Jeremy Doku was fouled by, you know, Fred, you know, Onyedina, right? And then just after City made a double change, we also saw Ross Barkley, you know, he took advantage of a Mateus, you know, Nunes mistake to pull one back for the Hatters. And then Doku, you know, cut in from the left to actually slot in a solo. It was a great solo goal, you know, from into the bottom corner, to say the least. And then again, the Belgium, you know, Doku has been so impressive, I must say, you know, and in this game he was very impressive because he set up Manchester City's fifth, you know, as he was able to pick out, you know, Josko Guardiola, you know, who slammed the beauty into the top corner. And that, like, the defender's second goal in a week, having like scored, you know, for City like that before, you know, in the Champions League, remember. So basically now City, you know, are 2 points clear at the top, you know. They are 2 points ahead of Liverpool as well as, you know, Arsenal. And Luton Town remain in the relegation zone, unfortunately. But City, they were able to conjure a victory without Rodri, you know. Because, look, Manchester City have done something that they've never managed yet this season. Winning a league game without, you know, their talisman Rodri in the midfield. So you look at the influential midfielder, you know, he only missed like 3 league games this season through suspension. And the only 3 defeats City have experienced in the league was when Rodri was not there, right? And, you know, it was said that now Rodri needed some rest, you know, after Tuesday's 3-3, you know, Champions League quarterfinal thriller with Real Madrid at the Santiago Bernabeu, you know. And then, obviously, yeah, Pep Guardiola as the manager, he didn't want to take the risk. He knows how important Rodri is to the team. He's basically the engine of this team. He's the frame that keeps the structure together, right? So Rodri was on the bench, but Manchester City didn't even need him. Okay, just like Manchester City didn't need Kevin De Bruyne in that 3-3, Champions League game. It was so, it was so phenomenal, and it was so, scintillating. It was insane. Okay. Yes, the Brazilian Edison was back in goal after a month out, and he had actually had a comfortable afternoon at ease, at the back. And it was actually a comfortable afternoon for everybody in a light blue shirt. Haaland should have scored in the first minute when he was sent one-on-one by KDB, Kevin De Bruyne. However, his shot was actually saved, right, by Thomas Kaminski. And, his follow-up was actually going wide before being deflected, by Hashioka, who was almost knocked out by the effort. And from that particular moment in time, it was non-stop pressure and dominance from Manchester City, who lived in Luton's defensive third. But it took them up until, their 27th shot to actually double their lead through Kovacic's half volley from a Julian Alvarez cross. And to say the least, Haaland, he looks set for another frustrating afternoon in front of goal. But, he's got Doku to actually thank, because he was actually chopped down by the defender, Onyedimna, right? And the Norwegian, he converted a penalty for his 20th Premier League goal of the season. And then Luton, pulled one back. Again, Doku at the thick of things, once again, he took on, Onyedimna. And, he, this time he dared not to lunge in, before finding the bottom corner. I mean, he was giving the defender a torrid time. And then Guardiola netted a fine goal in Madrid on Tuesday and got another one similar to that one in stoppage time, thanks to Jeremy Doku. I mean, Jeremy Doku had a wonderful game, getting a goal, getting an assist, and creating a penalty. Wow, what a great game for the Belgian. He's actually going to be key for Belgians, the Red Devils of Belgium, in the Euro 2024 tournament in Germany. But how long defending champions City remain top, right? And yes, they are at the top. You understand? Because Liverpool and Arsenal slipped to defeat on Sunday afternoon. So, right, Luton are now a point behind Nottingham Forest, in the battle to actually stay up after Nottingham Forest, drew 2-2 with Wolverhampton Wanderers. But this was never a game, the coach Rob Edwards, would have expected something from, because the Luton fans who actually made the trip enjoyed themselves and made plenty of noise. These are the kind of games they would have been looking forward to and perhaps fearful of, after last season's promotion, And Luton Town managed to only conjure up like 4 shots, although they were good ones, with, Carly Woodrow hitting the crossbar as well as Barkley finishing following a great step over after City's defensive mistake. And who do Luton face next, I wonder? Yeah, they will be at home to Brentford. They face Brentford at home on the 20th of April. It's actually going to be a huge game for them. A very huge game. And it's a must-win game for them, It's a must-win, to say the least. So we continue. Again, Spurs. Tottenham Hotspurs. Right. Newcastle United 4. Tottenham Hotspur 0. Okay. Newcastle, how many times does this have to happen at St. James's Park? How many times does Tottenham get walloped, at St. James's Park? Not so long ago, they got walloped 5-1. Was it 5-1 or 6-1? Was it 5-1 or 6-1? Yeah, it was 5-1. Yeah, it was 5-1. I think it was last season or the season before last, if I'm not mistaken. But irregardless of that, Newcastle have always been causing serious damage on Spurs at St. James's Park. Isn't that funny? So many times, Newcastle have been inflicting some serious damage on Tottenham Hotspur at St. James's Park. 4-0. Ooh, what an incredible game of football that was. Think about it. The Swedish striker, Alexander Isak. Oh my goodness. What a player. What a phenomenal player. What a baller. Now Alexander Isak has actually scored 21 goals in 34 games. He has got 21 goals in 34 matches in all competitions this season. 21 goals in 34 matches in all competitions this season. So now, the Swedish striker Alexander Isak, he now continues with his rich goal-scoring form at St. James's Park. And it has just continued, because now the Magpies inflicted some serious damage on Tottenham Hotspur to actually boost their hopes of perhaps securing European football next season. And it actually looked as though Newcastle were never going to secure European football next season. Yes, they're out of Champions League. They're way out of Champions League contention. But Europa League, yeah. Yes, they're still well in. They're still within. So, Isak, what a player, man. What a baller. He literally produced 2 clinical finishes to actually score in each half, netting home, on home turf for the 6th consecutive match. So the Swedish striker has now netted 6 times in a row for Newcastle United at St. James's Park. Isn't that incredible? You understand? I'm sure the Magpies, faithful really have fallen in love with the Swedish gem. They have fallen in love with him. I mean, whenever he finds the back of the net, it always happens in front of them, on their home turf, in their home stadium. You understand? Because now Alexander Isak has now scored like 17 goals in 24 Premier League matches this season. Okay? 17 goals in 24 Premier League matches. Astonishing. And then Anthony Gordon, as well as Fabian Schär, were also on target for the Magpies. While Timo Werner, he had 2, clear-cut goal-scoring opportunities for Spurs. But again, poor finishing has let him down. And this is the same thing that cost him his career at Chelsea. Again. But anyway, Newcastle's emphatic victory has now lifted them up to 6th in the table, above Manchester United, who drew, 2-2 with Bournemouth on goal difference, right? And then Spurs actually dropped to 5th, below Aston Villa on, via 3 points, okay? So now Isak, he's the latest, in the lineage of Newcastle United strikers. From Alan Shearer to Andrew Cole to Malcolm, McDonald to Jackie Milburn, Newcastle's fans have long held a special affinity for a goal-scoring striker. A striker that they know will get them those 20 goals that they need every season. Okay? And Alexander Isak, he's that type of a player. I mean, Isak, who may have like the number 14, emblazoned on the back of his shirt. But the Swedish striker is cut from the same cloth as the names typically associated with the fan-built number 9 jersey. In the Premier League era, only 2 men have actually scored more, in more successive games than Isak, which has to obviously be Alan Shearer, as noted, as well as Cole, Andrew Cole himself. And, to actually underline why he will quickly establish himself as a hero, on Tyneside, is the fact that the double he just scored, in this one-sided victory over Tottenham Hotspurs, it's infinitely underlined his finishing prowess as Newcastle's, left the visitors dazed, in the spring sunshine. Remember, it is spring in England currently. In the United Kingdom, they're actually moving into a season of spring. And then currently, us in Africa, we're in a season of autumn. We're preparing for our winter. Our winter is in mid-year. So, Isak, he opened the scoring after he received the ball from Gordon. He did so well to actually cut inside, and then he powerfully unleashed a low shot, into the corner of the net. And that goal was actually the first goal scored, since Newcastle introduced sound shirts, right? Which allowed deaf fans to actually feel the noise of the St. James's Park, okay? And the Newcastle United captain, Dan Brand, used, sign language to actually say to the, say, love the fans, right? During the celebrations that followed Isak's strike. And then Gordon also added a second after, what a goal by Gordon. I mean, that was a crazy goal. But again, poor defense from Tottenham. But hey, Anthony Gordon, what a goal that was, man. I mean, that was a fantastic goal. I mean, I had to rewind so many times to actually see the brilliant goal. I mean, the way he did so well just to cut in, he kept his composure, and it was just a cool, calm, and collected finish. Gordon added the second after he lashed onto Pedro Porro's miscued clearance, and Isak effectively made the point safe after the interval. So basically, the 24-year-old now, he initially looked to be offside. When he actually made that burst through on goal. And what Alexander Isak did so right in terms of him scoring the 3rd goal for Newcastle United is the fact that he opened up his body so well. He steered the ball. He opened up his body. He was way onside. And that's exactly what he did. He was able to time his run. And look, once he received the ball, you knew that he was gone. And obviously he did so well to actually steer the ball past the Tottenham goalkeeper, Gigi Vicario. And Isak, he timed his run to perfection from inside his own half. It's the same goal that Ollie Watkins scored against Arsenal. It's the same as that one that Ollie Watkins scored against Arsenal. Stay in your own half, time your run, stay in your own half, and then make a run. Burst through on goal. From literally inside his own half, he made that burst, and he actually produced an ice cool finish. And a hat-trick actually evaded Isak, because Sher added a fourth, with the header from a Gordon corner. Basically also Anthony Gordon, what a great performance that was from him. Like 2 assists, literally 2 assists, and a goal to his name. He was actually firmly, the name on the lips of those actually streaming out the Gallow Gate end at the full-time whistle. And as for on the other hand, I want us to talk about Timo Werner. Timo Werner, oh my goodness. As a Chelsea, even at Chelsea, man, I used to be so critical of him, and again, his woes are continuing at Spurs. Tottenham had failed to find the net in only one of their past 43 league matches before this particular encounter. And there was a lot of promising patches of their attacking play in the opening third of the game. The Newcastle United defenders, I must say, they did a fine job in actually, stemming the effectiveness of Son, which left the player with 15 goals and 9 assists this season, a peripheral figure, However, 2 fine chances did come in the way of the German forward, Timo Werner, in the first half when the match was still, a contest. Werner lifted a volley high over the crossbar from a Brennan Johnson cross, when he might have actually done better to actually place, his head on the ball. And again, the 28-year-old, you remember he's on loan from, Red Bull Leipzig. He also scuffed the shot inside the penalty area when he was actually well placed. So basically it was like that failure to actually capitalize on their chances and some slipshod defending, which resulting in a chastening defeat for Tottenham. And it's undoubtedly a setback for their Champions League hopes, even if the coach, Ange Postecoglou, has been doing much to play down expectation. With Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester City to play, in 4 of their next 5 games, Spurs need to actually be more clinical to actually finish in the top 4. They really need to be more clinical than this. I mean, this was actually one of their worst performances this season. Like I said, Sheffield United are actually going down, to say the least, man. Because basically now Sheffield United, they've lost once again. And they're going down. I don't see Sheffield United actually surviving. Due to the fact that, they were just defeated by 2-0. They suffered a 2-0 defeat to Brentford away from home. Okay? And that obviously does condemn them to the championship next season. So look, Brentford, they've now actually moved 7 points clear of the relegation zone. So that is their first victory. That was actually their first victory since February the 10th. So it took them over 2 months to secure a victory, right? And then now Brentford have beaten Sheffield United, to actually, that's also, again, that's their first victory in 10 Premier League games, okay? And it puts them at ease with regards to their relegation fears. So it all got kickstarted with an unfortunate own goal from the Blades youngster, Olivier, our blaster, just past the hour mark, to actually put Thomas Frank's side ahead. And then he inadvertently, sent Mikkel Damsgaard's cross into the far corner, right? So look, again, the substitute Frank Onyeka, he sealed the victory in the stoppage time, as the Bees actually move up to 14th, 7 points clear of the bottom 3. Whereas, meanwhile, Sheffield United remain at the bottom, right? And they actually take another steps towards, immediate return to the championship, okay? Chris Wilder's side are actually 10 points from safety with 6 games to play. So they're already relegated, okay? They're just basically relegated. And the visitors actually started brightly. with, Ben Brenton Diaz, breaking free down the left, but he just scuffed his effort, with only the Brentford goalkeeper, Mark Flaken to beat. And again, their woes continue, just lacking that clinical edge in front of goal, as well as defensive frailties have just been, part of their dilemma this season, which is actually condemning them to the championship next season. And again, look, Brentford, they soon took charge, despite dominating possession, okay? They struggled to create many chances, with Neil Maupay, stabbing wide, their best opportunity of the first half, after the United defender, Anel Ahmedhodzic, gave the ball away inside his own half. And it was actually a similar story after the break when Matthias, Jorgensen actually seeing a goal ruled out for offside before Brentford's fortuitous, opener. And look, Dom's got, he thought that he had actually doubled the lead after, the interval afterwards, but, the video assistant referee intervened to actually rule, out his crisp volley from Brian Mbuemo's free kick for a foul on Ollie McBurney in the build-up. But again, look, the Blades, it has just not been their season. Even though they did try to push for an equalizer, but, Cameron Archer's wayward shot from a tight angle was, as close as they came before Onyeka, latched onto the fit again. Kevin shot his flick on, to actually fire the clincher for Brentford and seal all 3 points for the Londoners at home. But look, Brentford, now that the fact that they've closed in on a top flight survival, Brentford's third season in the Premier League has surely, been their toughest, but with 5 games to go, they can actually begin to plan for a fourth year, in the top flight with that, with a bit of more confidence. And the celebrations that actually followed, a first home victory, since the 20th of January certainly suggested that as much as with Frank and his players soaking up, the applause of a satisfied home support, at the G-Tech Community Stadium, I must say, it has actually been a challenging season for them, because they were badly affected by injuries, even though they were performing quite well. But look, even when Ivan Toney was banned and all of that, it really did affect them. And it was actually tough for them, but it reminds you why it's actually the best league in the world. Premier League is actually the best league in the world because it is so difficult and it's so competitive. But as for Brentford, it was not a game to actually, elicit much excitement from the neutrals. But it wasn't for them because with both sides battling to stay up, the result was all that mattered, and Brentford got the result. It came after a match that could only generously be said to have provided sporadic glimpses of quality with, which wouldn't actually bother anyone, of a Brentford, persuasion. And it is actually not a final, but it is very important for them because it was actually a great performance. It was through the roof, but I guess to say, they needed this result more than ever, And as was the case, for the entirety of the first half of the season, it was achieved without even Tovey, as the England striker started on the bench. And he remained there because now he's trying to manage his muscle injury, While he has actually struggled for goals in recent games, Tony's ability to actually occupy defenders, hold up the ball and actually bring others into play would have been useful for Brentford as they tried to break Sheffield United down in the first hour. But they got what they eventually seeked for. And one more win, possibly alongside another draw, should make absolutely sure of the Bees' safety in top flight football. Whereas the Blades, they fought hard. But hey, relegation is looming for them. Despite encouraging signs, for Walder's team in recent weeks, and it is actually now 8 games without a victory and just 1 victory in 16 matches. It was actually a tight KGFA, But as for, Sheffield United, they just couldn't find the quality when they needed to, I would say that, look, they didn't have the quality. They didn't show enough quality and enough big moments to actually settle these kind of games that they know is a must-win for them. Because relegation felt like a matter of win rather than, if and should results go against them. Confirmation, could come as soon as next week, Wednesday, when they take on Manchester United on the 24th of April at Old Trafford. And, recent draws with Bournemouth, Fulham and Chelsea, and even defeat at Liverpool, the Blades, did not lack the grit and determination. Though defensively, again, like I said, defensively, they needed a much better showing as they restricted Brentford for long spells. But, untimely, this was not enough, man. It was just not enough, because the fact that the team is competing again, having failed to do so, at times earlier in the campaign, but it is something for Wilder to cling on to, and it may not be much, and bearing a minor miracle, it will not be enough to actually keep them up, because the Blades do appear to have turned a corner, right? So I guess at this particular moment in time, relegation does loom for them, basically.